This conference will now be recorded.
Well, hello to everyone and welcome to Let's Talk Business. Unfortunately, for this particular session, Joanne Forrester, which is my co-host, the Empress of Biz, is not able to join us. But as they say, the show must go on. And today I'm very lucky to have with me Chris Shea, because we are going to do an interview that is very unusual. Financial advisors have a lot of regulations, have a lot of things they need to worry about, and it's unusual for them to be able to come on a show like this and talk with us and share information with us. So I am just thrilled that we're able to do this today with Chris. Um, First, before we even start, and along those same lines, a quick disclosure. Chris Shea is a financial advisor. Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. 38 Austin Street, Worcester, Massachusetts, 01608, telephone number 508-797-9293. And boy, I hope I got that right. And I tried to put my little Boston accent in there from when I was going up to school. All right, here we go. So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from originally, and what are you doing now?
So thanks, Sal, for that intro, and thanks for the attempt at the Boston accent. I am a financial advisor in the greater Boston area. I'm originally from Boston, moved back from the area in 2016 for a position as a consultant with a high net worth investment bank. I was helping financial advisors with their practices. In between leaving and coming back, I got 2 undergraduate degrees from UMass Amherst, sport management and business. I then went on and earned my MBA from Tulane in general business, worked as a project manager, and then was a consultant to financial advisors for a number of years. I also got married, and now I have a wonderful daughter.
Well, excellent. And by the way, one thing that we share in common and then binds us is we are both Tulane alumni, because in addition to going to school in Boston, I also went down to Tulane, and even more specifically, I also have an MBA from Tulane. I'm not going to go into dates because that's going to date me a little bit. But why did you choose to do an MBA at Tulane University in New Orleans, Chris?
Tulane actually turned out to be one of the easier choices for me that I've ever had to make. One of my undergraduate professors at UMass was providing references for the 7 schools I was applying to, told me in order for him to do my references, I had to apply to Tulane or he would not give me a reference. He was a Tulane MBA alumni as well. So then it turns out that during the interview process with the Dean of Admissions, my reference and the Dean of Admissions graduated with their MBAs together from Tulane. So Tulane decided to give me some scholarship money, and off to New Orleans I went, which was a great decision for me, because in addition to the great MBA that I got there, the city of New Orleans opened me up to music and culture that I'd kind of forgotten about in my quest to achieve success in my career.
Oh, it is definitely quite the place, and I think all of us that had the opportunity to study down there or live down there certainly always look for excuses to travel back.
Every time I can.
Yeah. Why did you decide to become a financial advisor? Was there a particular person or situation that caused you to think that there was an important need for this financial education?
My wife for me is very personal. And helping others with money and finances is because people make mistakes with their finances, right? Personal finance, you hear it all the time on the news. It's not taught in school. Most families don't even talk about it with one another. My parents really didn't talk to it about with me, but my grandfather did. He taught me how to read the stock market around age 10. I'd go in and read the prices, the dividends, whether up or down. He taught me a lot about investing. And knowing that most people make mistakes because of lack of knowledge, I decided to join the Association of Financial Educators because their values aligned with mine. and the way I choose to work with people. I've also made some financial mistakes that have cost me in a way that I quite frankly didn't foresee. Additionally, I've also seen a lot of people have things happen to them that derailed them somewhere along their life and negatively have, worked them towards their financial goals. Working with a professional, a plan for a lot of them could have been constructed to minimize the negative consequences of those circumstances. Seeing people get financially destroyed is something that is terrible when something bad happens. And it's even worse knowing that someone could have prevented it had there been proper education for those people.
No, absolutely. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about the Association of Financial Educators. What is the objective of the organization? How does it accomplish its mission? And at what age should people start thinking about educating themselves on their personal financial matters?
The AFE is a great thing. It's a nationwide 501c3 nonprofit educational bureau, and it's comprised of financial professionals in dozens of fields, including investing, estate planning, accounting, tax, real estate, law, and more. The members share one thing in common, though. They have a passion for education and a common goal of empowering individuals and communities with the knowledge so those people can take control of their own financial well-being. The way in which this is accomplished is the members run seminars in corporations for their employees or for the general public, right? So you have a company, go in, you talk to the employees, and they get some education, and it's free for the company to put on, which is a nice perk for the company and for the employees. In terms of education around when to start learning more about money, young age, as young as possible. I taught my daughter the power of saving money at age 4 when she saved up enough money to buy an iPad, which usually shocks people to hear that a 4-year-old bought an iPad with their own money. And the other day, we were returning recyclable cans because that's one of the ways that she makes money. And she said she wanted to save for her own phone, which made me extremely happy because I'm like, okay, now she understands that she wants to save the money as opposed to buy some candy. She had a goal in mind. If you didn't get educated at a young age, though, the best day really is today, right? You can never start too soon. Time is not your friend with making uneducated choices regarding your personal finances. Got to start sooner rather than later.
Okay. And by the way, since these videos stay online for a long time and people watch them at their convenience, sometimes even years later, I do want to say that we're in the middle of September here in 2020. The coronavirus pandemic is really going on right now. So I wanted to ask you, as the COVID-19 crisis unfolds, should individuals be making specific changes to their financial planning because of this? And if so, what and why?
This is the classic answer of it depends. If a person is working with an advisor, continue to have conversations on a regular basis, at least annually, to make sure you're on track. With COVID, you might even want to make it more frequently. In these conversations, clients should be talking about their fears of what's going on and strategies that can be implemented, which might help serve to mitigate these fears and the uncertainty with what's going on in the world right now. Because there's different ways to attack every single problem depending on people's individual circumstances. If someone isn't using a financial advisor right now that they trust, please find one as soon as you possibly can. Most people make the assumption that financial advisor only works with a person that has X dollars to invest. That's not always the case. A financial advisor's real job is to be there to help people with various amounts of money saved and invest and learn how to grow their money so they can achieve what they want. So, if you have an advisor, talk to them. If you don't, find one but please talk to someone who's a professional about this.
Excellent. And for people that have watched some of these interviews in the past, you probably know that I'm a business broker. So I'm going to ask a question that is very near and dear to my heart as a business broker that helps people buy and sell businesses. And is, would you recommend buying a small business to create wealth and achieve personal financial freedom?
Let me start by saying that being a business owner is not for everyone. I know a really very intelligent person whom I have personal great respect for, and he has 2 failed businesses. Being a business owner can mean someone has more wealth, but that wealth is usually tied up in the business or in real estate. Business owners usually don't have a large amount of liquid assets like an employee does with a retirement account. A business owner, as they start to plan for this, must realize that the responsibility is to run the business. And in order for it to be successful, they've got to be worrying about that business all the time. So it really comes down to the person understanding that it can provide financial freedom, but you're the business when you're the business owner.
Okay. And Chris, from your perspective, what are the pros and cons and risk reward trade-offs of doing this?
Again, I'm going to say this, being a small business owner and buying one can be a great way to achieve wealth. The big word there is can, right? You got to understand what you're doing in the process of buying a business, which is why having a business broker is a really good idea and using someone who's a professional. It is not and should not be an overnight decision. You got to be all in with family that may be affected and weighs the pros and cons of that, because they're going to be affected because of the fact that you're going to be owning and running a business. Most people don't realize when they buy a business that the business will run you if you do not run it. And that may sound like a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. Most businesses and most business owners don't fail because of a lack of business. They fail because they're not set up to succeed. Running a business isn't just dealing with customers. There's a lot that you have to do behind the scenes, certain activities that potential owners do not realize. Someone interested in buying a business has to be realistic as to why you're risking potentially all your wealth for this endeavor, and that endeavor could be the best thing that you ever do in your life, right? Someone who's looking to do this has to understand that they're going to have to perform or hire someone to perform a large number of activities that they don't think about when they're taking on the responsibility of buying a business, right? So I thought about a little list here, and a small partial list that a small business owner is going to have to do. Number one is you got to figure out what your business is going to be. You got to manage your finances. You got to hire, manage, and fire employees. You got to respond to your customers. You have to create marketing and ad campaigns. You got to handle legal issues. You got to manage the office. You got to supervise a team. And as we talked about with COVID coming about, now you've got to oversee a lot of tech support that you might not have had to do before. So that's a partial list, right? And I came up with 9 things really quickly. So as a potential small business owner, you need to objectively ask yourself, what on that list are you able to handle? Or better yet, have a group of advisors that can help you to realize what they see as your strengths and weaknesses and where you might want to outsource things and where you can shoulder the load. A business broker is a great person to do that. A financial advisor should also be one of those people on your short list that you ask as you go through this process to make sure you're successful at what you do and that you have your money in the future. I know I've talked to a few people and got them to rethink what they need to do in order to be successful, and pointed out to a number of small business owners resources in my network that help fill in where they're not strong. Because not everybody can be every have strengths in everything. You might have weaknesses in finance, HR, marketing, sales, legal, IT, tech. No one person can be great at everything that a small business owner has to do. So you got to be able to find people that are going to be there to be able to help you through those processes. There are a number of reasons to be a small business owner, but there are not just a lot of factors that need to be considered when you're determining what the benefit is for yourself. I like working with small business owners. I work with potential small business owners as well to work through the pros and cons and help them to decide which track they want to follow. Staying as an employee for someone else or working on their own as an entrepreneur. Because as we've said, you can generate a lot of wealth by being a small business owner, but it's got to be right for you.
Wow, thank you for really touching on a lot of issues and a lot of topics that a potential business owner has to think about. And maybe going a little bit further down that line, many of our viewers are interested in buying or selling a business, but are concerned about the tax consequences of these transactions. And more specifically, is there a way to use your IRA or 401k money to buy a business without a tax penalty?
So I'm going to start off by saying I am not an accountant, nor am I a tax professional. So please, please, please speak to one or both before even thinking about using your IRA to invest in a business. This is a very particular area of law and tax, and a lot of mistakes can be made that ruin people with just wonderful intentions of creating their financial utopia and running the business of their dreams. My short answer as a financial advisor is no. You're going to feel a tax hit if you use your 401k or your IRA money and you want to have access to it. So again, contact a tax professional and or a tax accountant that can get into the details of this, because my recommendation usually is to stay away from those funds.
Okay. All right. So understanding that, but still, since there is no free lunch in the financial world, can you talk a little bit about what are the pros and cons and risk reward trade-offs of doing something like this?
Yep. Again, I'll get into a little bit of that, but you need to talk to a very experienced tax professional and or accountant who's worked in this area before, and as the IRS understands that people really want to leverage whatever money they have to start a business. I have a number of CPAs in my network that I work with, and some of them choose to advise clients on these things, and some of them choose not to because it can be very tricky to navigate. It has to be carefully researched as to whether this would be in your best interest, or whether there are other ways to get money, right? You can go to a bank and access money through a loan there. There are hard money lenders that may be safer to utilize for the wealth of themselves and their family. Again, buying a business, we've stated this, can be one of the best things you can never do, but it's risky, right? If you start tapping into your retirement accounts and things like that, and if the business fails, you will lose all of your retirement assets. Dun & Bradstreet says that after 4 years, only 38% of small businesses still operate. So go in with your eyes open and aware of the risk reward for tapping into potentially some of your retirement accounts and assets.
Okay. And maybe one last question before we move off of this topic, because I know there's a lot of interest on this. Can you talk briefly about what are the legal and administrative costs of executing these types of financial strategies? And also, how long does it take to coordinate this and get all the paperwork done?
The legal and administrative costs are really negligible and minor compared to buying the business. And when you go in, they should have been accounted for anyhow, right? As you talk to a business broker, you should say there should be a conversation of, okay, you're going to have to hire a lawyer. As for the timeline to get it done, usually it's only a couple of weeks, which, as I'm sure you're going to tell people, Sal, that's short compared to the time considering by the business and negotiating it. So while you're in the negotiation process, you can get in touch with a lawyer and start drawing up all the paperwork and get it all coordinated. They should be done side by side, right? It shouldn't be one then the other. They can be done at the same time.
Okay, excellent. And let's talk for a second also about maybe the seller side of a transaction.
Yep.
Is there a way to sell your business without having to make a huge tax payment as a result of this transaction? I know a lot of sellers are, for obvious reasons, very concerned about that. And kind of the same thing, since there's no free lunch in the financial world. What are the pros and cons, risk rewards, trade-offs of doing something like this?
Yeah, and I don't have to tell you, Sal, but this is one of the biggest concerns that small business owners have when looking to sell their businesses, right? How do you avoid paying taxes? The answer, unfortunately, as we all know, because there's two certainties in life, right, is you can never avoid paying taxes. However, you can handle the sale in a much more effective manner. There's a process called an intermediated installment sale. The intermediated installment sale is a viable alternative to an outright sale, which can result in several benefits to the seller, in addition to deferring taxes. The next question usually is, what is an intermediated installment sale and how does it work? So I'll save you the problem of asking that question, Sal. It does 5 things for the seller. It defers payment or capital gains for several years after the sales, which you can use inflation then to your advantage. It protects assets against lawsuits and creditors. It can serve to replace lost income when selling a business or real estate. It provides better management of risk associated with carrying a note for a buyer, which a lot of transactions happen with. And it provides more investable cash and income for the person making the sale. In the intermediate installment, we can show that a company in California selling a business for $5 million with a cost basis of $450,000, assuming 6% return, 20 years of investment, will wind up with $650,000 additional cash by implementing this strategy. All circumstances are different. Not everyone's going to sell their business for $5 million. Not everyone lives in California. They're not going to have a cash base of $450,000. We'd have to run specific numbers for a seller to show them how this would benefit their business transaction. But it could be a benefit to someone looking to sell their business.
Okay. And actually kind of the same thing from this side of the seller. What are the legal and administrative costs of executing this type of financial strategy? And also, again, how long does it take to coordinate and get all the paperwork done for this?
How long does it take is always the question that people have. How long is this going to take? It shouldn't take any longer than a normal transaction. The only real difference is setting up and maneuvering the transaction through a trust. And the trust can be set up whenever the seller wants prior to the transaction. So it's kind of up to the seller as to when they want to get it established. If there is someone interested in selling their business, it'd be great for me to be able to speak with them and see if this is something that could be a benefit to them. Having the knowledge of how the strategy may impact a long-term monetary gain for a business seller could impact the price in which they're willing to sell and or the time frame in which they're willing to sell. Because there could be an added benefit of reducing the price to get a sale to happen if they know that they can make up that money in the end with some deferred gains. So this strategy can be very beneficial to somebody looking to sell their business.
Okay. So, Chris, we've been talking about a couple of specific strategies or things to think about from the buy side, from the sell side. But are there other tools or strategies or resources that are not well known, but could be of benefit to buyers or sellers of a small business?
There are a lot of tools, strategies, resources out there. A lot of people will just go to Google and they'll get information, and some of it will be good information, and some of it will be not so good information, to help people buying and selling small businesses. A business broker is a good one to talk to. The best resource, though, really is to be leveraged as a financial advisor. When people ask me about anything, whether it be real estate, insurance, annuities, stocks, bonds, businesses, I'm obligated as a fiduciary to give them an honest appraisal of the possible benefits and risks. And then my job as a financial advisor is to support them going through the process of making the investments over time in a relationship that brings value to them, right? Not all investments are created equally. Not all investors are the same. Not all businesses are created equally. Not all businesses are the same. My clients, small business owners included, enjoy having someone to bounce ideas off of and really challenge their thought process to make sure they're not missing something and wind up making the best choice for their financial future. Because usually someone, particularly a small business owner, is an expert in something other than their finances, which after your health is probably one of the most critical things, right? So contacting a financial advisor who is a fiduciary, who does have their best interest, is usually the best resource for them to go, because it will give them a good dialogue to get the best answer for themselves.
Okay. So I know throughout this conversation, several times you've mentioned very correctly that every situation is unique, and you need to put together sort of a tailored strategy, and that obviously the best way to do that is to talk with you. So if one of our viewers would like to discuss their specific personal financial needs with you, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, the best way is to call me on the phone. Believe it or not, even though in this day and age of everyone texting and everyone being on a Zoom call or whatever, or on a video chat or whatever the case may be, the phone call is really the best way. I've got two numbers that go to me directly. The first direct number is 508-770-0274, and my business cell phone is 781-733-5996. As I mentioned, some people are not always comfortable calling as the first method of contact, so they can reach me at my email, which is Shea, SHEAC, at CeteraNetworks.com, and I'll spell that. It's SHEAC at CeteraNetworks.com. That's my email address. This day and age, people should trust but verify as well. So I'd recommend people check out my company webpage. It's johnlamontagne.com. That's JOHNLAMONTAGNE.com. Or check in my LinkedIn profile. I'm connected with you, Sal, so if people are connected to you, they can find me pretty easily. But my LinkedIn profile is linkedin.com with my personal information on the end is CSHEA1972. So linkedin.com/IN/CSHEA1972 to verify who I am and make sure that you're finding someone that is a trusted advisor and is a fiduciary that does believe in helping people to do what's in their best interest, and get them through whatever challenges they're having financially.
And for anyone that's watching this video on the YouTube platform, we're going to put all that contact information in the description of the video. So, if you're rushing to find a pencil and a pad of paper, don't worry. Just look at the description. Everything will be on there. This really draws it to a close for us. I just want to say once again, Chris, thank you very much for joining us for this interview and this conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to work with us. Again, there's a lot of regulation, there's a lot of compliance that goes around doing this type of interview, and I know it was a challenge to get it done. So I appreciate you working through that and joining us and sharing this information with all of our readers. Again, the information and the contact information will be in the description. Just want to say before we, anything else you want to say, Chris, before we close out?
Just that all the effort was worth it. The whole goal for me, as I think I stated, is to help people with their finances. And the more people that I can reach and help, the better off hopefully they are. And that's my why, is to help people with their finances. So to be able to help you with this, Sal, has been good. And it's always good to connect as well with a Tulane MBA and chat about Nolans every once in a while.
Absolutely. So let me just say before we log out, once again, Chris Shea is a financial advisor. Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. 38 Austin Street, Worcester, Massachusetts, 01608, phone 508-797-9293. And thank you to everyone that's been listening and watching with us today. And thank you again, Chris.
Thank you. Enjoy. Be safe.